Without a doubt, one of the most enduringly successful and relevant businesses of the last century would have to be Ford Motor Company. And yet, in the early 80s, in response to the onslaught of competition from Japanese car makers, Ford was in serious trouble. In fact, in one 3-year period, they lost $3.3 billion, which equated to about half of the car maker's value. And to their credit, in the response to such a moment of crisis in the company, Ford's leadership, rather than springing straight into action, they actually decided to stop and ask some more fundamental questions. Questions like, well, who are we as a business? What do we stand for? What are we known for? What are some of the things that have made us great in the first place? And is it possible we've lost sight of some of those core fundamentals? This period of reflection led to Ford coming up with what became known as their 3 Ps, which was like the codified DNA of Ford. The 3 Ps were people, then products, then profit, in that order. And not just did this process, this exercise, give Ford's leaders a blueprint for the decisions they would have to make to reinvent the business in the coming few years, which they did with great success. What it did was it recalibrated Ford with the core ideology that the company's founder had espoused all those decades previous. In the face of change and in the face of challenge, it is critically important that any business or brand make sure they stay in alignment. That there is alignment between what you're doing, how you're doing things, and who you are and why you're in business. It's a bit like I remember when I was a young kid in Scouts, we'd go off navigating, orienteering in the wilderness, and we were trained the first thing we had to do before we took a step off go was to calibrate our compass with our map. Because we could have the best compass in the world, the most accurate map in the world. If they weren't calibrated, because of the difference, the minute difference between magnetic and true north, we would wander off track by tiny degrees over a period of time and end up somewhere very different to where we thought we were going. And this is exactly the same in business. As you look to embark on change, and we'll talk in the coming few videos of a series of strategies for re-engineering how you do things, rethinking the whole nature of what your business does and who you are, it is critical we stop first and recalibrate your business with your core DNA, with your true north. And I want to give you 7 recalibration questions I want you to think about as you reflect on what your true north, your DNA as a brand is. The first question is this one here. What business are you in? And here's the reality. The business you are in may have very little to do with the products you sell or the services you offer. I remember asking a number of hotel and bar licensees this very same question a number of years ago in New Zealand. And understandably, they all said, well, we're in the food and beverage business. And I said, but are you? I said, because if I come into one of your bars or one of your restaurants and I buy a glass of wine, let's say I spend $8, $9, $15 on that glass of wine, I know full well I could go down the street to the liquor store and buy a whole bottle of exactly the same wine for the price I just spent on a glass. Why do I pay the premium? I said, I pay the premium because you've created an atmosphere, an experience that I perceive to be valuable. And I said to them, I said, you guys are in the atmosphere, you're in the experience business. Food and beverage is just one way you do it. And so, what business are you in? The second recalibrating question is this one here. What are you known for? What is your reputation in the marketplace? If you were to ask 10 random strangers in the street to describe the words they associate when they hear the name of your business or your brand or your industry, what are some of the words that would come up? Number 3, the third question is this one here. What are our non-negotiable core values? In other words, what are the values that you would hold true to even if they became unprofitable or unpopular in the future? Number 4, the fourth recalibration question is this. Why do we exist beyond making a profit? Because of course, for any business to be enduring, it must have a sense of purpose and ideology that outlives just the profit motive in itself. The number 5 question is this one here. If we were to cease to exist tomorrow, what would be lost in the world? In other words, again, in non-financial senses, what do you bring to the planet, to your community? Would anyone notice if you were to cease trading tomorrow? Number 6, how do we describe our business, our brand, our organization on the back of a t-shirt? And of course, this is powerful. If you can condense who you are, what you stand for, into one word or a slogan or an image, what would that be? And last one, number 7, seventh question is, what would make me volunteer? What would make you give of your time to this company, to your organization, to your employer, even if you weren't being paid to be there? You know, recalibrating any business or brand is absolutely critical, but I want to encourage you with this. Staying relevant, reinventing yourself is never about compromise. Of course, it's about innovation, it's about trying new things, but it's never about compromising who you are, your core DNA as a business or a brand or an organization. In fact, the moment you see any organization or brand willing to compromise on their core values in order to stay ahead of the curve, ahead of the competition, to stay relevant, they never last long. The old saying is true. If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. What do you stand for? Who are you? Make sure you stay in alignment with that.